Deep in the outer edges of the solar frontier, a small team of scientists and engineers worked quietly. They were not looking for fame or recognition. Their job was dangerous, secret, and almost unimaginable. They were building a weapon no human had ever dared to create before, a railgun capable of firing a single projectile with power enough to rival small planets. For centuries, humans had been limited in the galactic community. Other civilizations saw Earth as young, untested, and too unpredictable to hold dangerous technology. The rules were clear. Nothing that could threaten the balance of power was allowed. Yet the world on Earth had changed. Over the past decades, colonies had gone missing without explanation. Ships and research stations simply disappeared, leaving behind nothing but faint energy traces. Those losses had once been seen as accidents or tragic misfortune, but scientists began to suspect something darker. Earth's leaders could no longer wait for approval from the Galactic Council. Humanity had to act. The railgun, known among the team as the Atlas Project, was hidden deep beneath the lunar crust, in a facility carved into the gray rock of the moon. Outside, the barren surface looked quiet and empty, but inside, massive halls hummed with energy. Engineers moved quickly, checking circuits, monitoring plasma conduits, and adjusting the electromagnetic coils that would launch the projectile. Every person there understood the stakes. A failure could destroy the facility, or worse, alert the galaxy prematurely to what humans had built. Despite the tension, there was a quiet excitement. For the first time, humans were stepping into a power no other civilization expected them to reach. Years of research, decades of trial and error, and countless calculations had brought them here. And while some feared the consequences, others felt something stronger: hope. For the first time, humanity would show it could take control of its destiny. The test day arrived, and the lunar base was filled with nervous energy. Engineers and scientists moved between consoles, their eyes scanning readouts, hands flying over keyboards, making last-minute adjustments. Outside, the barren moon reflected the distant light of Earth, appearing calm and lifeless. Yet below the surface, energy was building at an unimaginable rate. The railgun's coils thrummed, glowing with a faint blue light as the magnetic field grew stronger and stronger. When the countdown reached its final seconds, a hush fell over the room. No one spoke. Everyone waited. The railgun's pulse began to ripple through the structure, shaking the ground subtly. Energy readings spiked, higher than any previous test had ever reached. The projectile, a dense tungsten rod, hovered in the firing chamber, suspended by electromagnetic fields, ready to travel faster than anything humanity had ever launched. Then the system fired. The projectile shot down the railgun's barrel with a power that made the entire base tremble. Instruments screamed as the energy moved outward, and for a brief moment the moon itself seemed to shiver. Beyond the lunar surface, sensors on satellites and space stations far away picked up the release of energy. It was unlike anything seen before. Other civilizations, silently observing the solar system for decades, felt it too. Their instruments registered a pulse that carried the signature of weapons long thought extinct. The energy from the railgun was strong enough to ripple across space, faint but unmistakable. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, leaders of ancient empires paused, their eyes fixed on the new readings. Some whispered in disbelief. Others sent urgent messages to fleet commanders. The signal's source was unmistakable. It came from a young, untested species, Earth. Meanwhile, in the lunar base, humans celebrated quietly. They did not understand, yet the full scale of what they had done. To them, the test had been a success, a triumph of science and courage. They had launched the first human railgun, a weapon capable of unimaginable destruction. But beyond their celebration, the galaxy began to shift. Long-held balances of power, treaties, and unspoken rules had just been broken. Engineers monitored the railgun's flight, tracking the projectile as it moved toward an uninhabited asteroid in the belt. The tungsten rod traveled at near light speed, leaving a trail of energy that instruments could barely comprehend. It was not meant to hit anything critical. The target had been chosen to avoid disaster. Yet even in its harmless path, the projectile demonstrated the raw force humanity could now wield. Back on Earth, political leaders debated quietly. Some argued for restraint, warning that the galaxy would notice quickly and might respond aggressively. Others argued for caution, saying humanity had no choice. The missing colonies, the unexplained attacks, and the silent watch of distant civilizations had made it clear that the solar system could no longer rely on hiding. Humanity had to show it could defend itself. The railgun was proof. Meanwhile, news of the test, or at least its faint energy signature, reached civilizations across the stars. The Clier Dominion, a warrior race with centuries of unbroken rule, immediately called an emergency council. The Theron clans, known for their cunning and diplomacy, began transmitting urgent messages to allied systems. Even the quiet Nebulan Order, thought to be extinct for thousands of years, sent cryptic warnings. The galaxy had noticed Earth, and every major power was quietly holding its breath. For those on the moon, life returned to routine quickly. The railgun had fired successfully. Data had been collected. The experiment was complete. Scientists and engineers returned to maintenance and analysis. Yet few allowed themselves to forget the moment of the firing. The incredible rush of seeing a human-made object surpass the limits of known physics. It was an achievement the galaxy had not expected from Earth. Some wondered what would happen next. Would the Galactic Council demand disarmament? Would distant empires send fleets to warn humanity against further tests? Or would they assume this was only the beginning, a hint of a new power rising quietly in the shadows? The truth was no one could say for certain. Humanity had crossed a line, but the consequences had not yet arrived. For the scientists, the feeling was bittersweet. They had achieved something no one thought possible. Yet there was a quiet tension under the excitement. They knew that the moment the galaxy understood what had happened, life would change forever. Humans were no longer simply a developing species. They were now a force to be reckoned with, capable of reaching heights that even the oldest civilizations had never dared imagine. As the lunar night fell, the moon's surface was quiet again. The base's lights reflected faintly on the gray rock outside, but beneath, the energy of the railgun remained in its dormant state. Engineers made final checks, recalibrating instruments and logging data. Conversations were muted, filled with cautious optimism and quiet speculation. Humanity had taken a step that could never be undone. They had fired the first human railgun, and the galaxy had already noticed. No one outside the moon could see it yet, but a ripple had begun. Energy waves from the test continued outward into the void, traveling faster than light could communicate. Somewhere in distant star systems, ancient civilizations were stirring. Machines long thought silent were recording the signal. Ships once hidden in dark corners of space were altering their courses. For the first time, the galaxy paid close attention to a small blue planet at the edge of the solar system. And humanity, unaware of the full scope of what had been set in motion, looked up at Earth from the moon, feeling a mixture of triumph and unease. They had done what no one expected. They had crossed a boundary, and there was no turning back. The first human railgun had fired, and across the galaxy, the first echoes of fear had begun to spread. The moment the railgun fired, the universe took notice. For centuries, humans had lived under quiet observation, seen as a minor species on the galactic stage. Other civilizations barely considered Earth a threat. They were used to monitoring from afar, sending cloaked scouts or distant probes and ignoring the small blue planet. But the firing of the railgun changed everything. The energy signature it sent out was unmistakable. It carried the power and precision of something far beyond what humans were supposed to have. In the heart of the Clier Dominion, one of the galaxy's oldest warrior empires, alarms rang across command halls. Leaders who had remained calm through countless wars and uprisings suddenly faced an anomaly they could not ignore. The energy reading was analyzed and verified multiple times. Every calculation confirmed it. This was a weapon capable of destroying entire planets. And it had come from humans. For the Clier, power was measured in fleets and armies. They were confident in their strength, accustomed to seeing other civilizations bow or flee. Yet the Railgun's signature filled them with unease. It was precise, controlled, and fast. Unlike other weapons that had taken centuries to develop, this appeared suddenly, fully formed. The humans had bypassed every expectation. A council of warlords gathered in silence, exchanging glances, their usual confidence replaced by concern. Far beyond the clear dominion, the Theran clans reacted differently. Known for their intelligence networks and diplomatic skill, they had quietly monitored Earth for decades. When they detected the energy pulse, analysts pored over the data. No one had ever recorded anything like it. The projectile's speed, the energy released, the precision, all of it suggested a civilization that had matured far faster than anyone imagined. Messages were sent urgently across their fleets. Every Theran commander was instructed to observe the solar system, but with caution. Close contact was forbidden until the humans' full capabilities could be understood. Even the silent Nebulon Order, thought extinct by most of the galaxy, reacted. Their archives held records of destructive weapons that rivaled the Railgun. These weapons had once threatened life across countless systems, leaving scars that lasted millennia. The energy pulse from Earth matched the signature of these long-lost technologies. It was a warning of what humans could now achieve. The oldest. Members of the Order debated quietly, their words cryptic but full of worry. Some believed the humans had awakened forces even the galaxy itself had forgotten. Meanwhile, on Earth and the Moon, life for the engineers and scientists continued almost normally, though the tension was palpable. They had completed their first successful test, but few understood the ripple it had caused. Some celebrated quietly, others studied the data with a mixture of excitement and fear. No one could predict what other civilizations would do now that humanity had demonstrated such power. They had crossed a line, and there was no way to step back. In orbit around Earth, hidden observation fleets watched silently. Cloaked ships drifted along the asteroid belt, invisible to humans. They transmitted readings back to their home systems. No decision was made to act yet, but every captain knew the same truth. The humans had changed the rules. The delicate balance that had kept the galaxy peaceful, or at least controlled, was now broken. Across the galactic network, discussions and debates raged. Scholars, military leaders, and diplomats studied the readings again and again. Some believed the humans had achieved this by chance, by luck, or raw determination. Others suspected something more profound. Perhaps there was a hidden intelligence guiding human progress, something ancient and unseen, quietly accelerating their technology. Whispers of the anomaly began to circulate. No one knew what it was, but its presence was felt. Back on the Moon, the scientists continued their work on the Railgun. Data flowed in constantly from the instruments that had recorded the firing. Every measurement told them they had succeeded beyond their own expectations. The projectile had traveled faster than the speed of light could communicate back, leaving trails of energy that instruments barely managed to track. To them, it was a triumph of human ingenuity. To the galaxy, it was a warning. As the humans reviewed their results, subtle changes began to appear in their world. Satellites recorded faint energy signatures that had not been present before. Small gravitational distortions occurred near the Moon. The engineers debated whether it was a side effect of the Railgun's enormous energy or something else entirely. Yet, none could ignore the feeling that their experiment had reached far, beyond their intended target. Even the media on Earth, though unaware of the weapon's true capabilities, reported unusual satellite anomalies. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some claimed new experiments, while others speculated about alien activity. Few guessed that these anomalies were the first visible signs of reactions from civilizations across the galaxy. Every pulse of the Railgun, every tiny ripple of energy had been observed. In the months following the test, communications between the Galactic Council's members grew urgent. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was unraveling. The Council called emergency meetings, some with fleets already in motion. The Clier sent scouts closer, though still at a safe distance. The Theran established diplomatic channels, attempting to learn more before acting. The Nebulon Order issued warnings to allied species, reminding them that the humans' sudden power might signal a larger threat or opportunity. Humans themselves remained largely unaware of the galaxy's reaction. Life continued with a strange mixture of normality and anticipation. Scientists tested new simulations, recalculating trajectories, velocities, and energy outputs. Engineers strengthened the Railgun's infrastructure, preparing for the next test. Political leaders debated public disclosure, weighing whether the human population should know the scale of what had been achieved. There were fears that panic could spread if the truth became known too soon. Despite the calm, the world was changing. Humans were stepping into a place no one had expected. Their first railgun had shown that they were no longer just observers in the galaxy. They were now participants capable of altering balance, forcing ancient powers to pay attention. Every civilization that had once overlooked Earth now had to consider the consequences. In private, scientists whispered among themselves. Some feared retaliation. Others believed the galaxy might attempt diplomacy, even alliance. Few predicted the range of possible outcomes. What was certain was that nothing would be the same again. Humans had made a statement whether they wanted to or not. They had announced their arrival. Across the stars, fleets adjusted their paths subtly. Observation posts sent new readings. Ancient machines, dormant for millennia, began to stir. Messages traveled through encrypted channels. The humans are active. They are awake. They have power we cannot ignore. Every corner of the galaxy was now aware that something new had emerged from the solar system. Even on Earth, the subtle effects of the firing began to appear. Scientists noticed shifts in orbital patterns and strange fluctuations in energy fields. Small meteors redirected slightly. The moon itself showed minor tremors deep below the surface, likely caused by the railgun's enormous discharge. To the engineers, these were interesting data points. To the galaxy, they were signs of something far greater. Humanity had begun to influence forces beyond its immediate understanding. And so, the first true reactions came slowly but surely. Across multiple star systems, civilizations that had once taken Earth lightly now focused all their attention. For the first time, humans were seen not as children or curiosity, but as a species capable of true power. This recognition, whether feared or admired, marked the beginning of a new era. Humans looked up at the sky, unaware of how closely they were watched. They celebrated quietly, proud of their accomplishment, while a distant galaxy whispered in concern. The firing of the first railgun had changed everything. Every calculation, every observation, every careful policy of ancient civilizations now faced uncertainty. And in that quiet moment, humans began to understand a subtle truth. Power came with responsibility. They had demonstrated ability, but they had no idea how far the consequences would reach. Across the stars, the galaxy had paused, waiting to see what the small blue planet would do next. The first human railgun had fired, and the universe had begun to take note. What happened next would determine whether humanity would survive in the galactic arena, or whether the attention it had drawn would bring challenges unlike anything the species had ever faced. The day of the Atlas strike arrived. After weeks of preparation and simulations, the moment had finally come for the first fully operational firing of the human railgun. The engineers and scientists on the moon had spent countless hours running tests, calibrating the magnetic coils, and analyzing energy outputs. Everything had been checked and double-checked. There was no room for mistakes. The asteroid selected as the target was carefully chosen. Uninhabited, distant, and well away from the orbits of planets or colonies. Yet despite the precautions, everyone knew that this was no ordinary experiment. As the team gathered in the command room deep inside the lunar base, a mixture of excitement and nervous tension filled the air. The room was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. The railgun's barrel, encased in layers of reinforced metal and energy shielding, glowed faintly with a blue light as the electromagnetic field built to its peak. Every meter of the chamber had been designed to withstand unimaginable forces. Outside, the barren lunar surface remained calm and empty, reflecting Earth's distant light. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Every scientist's hand hovered over controls, eyes locked on readouts. 7, 6, 5. The hum of the power systems increased, resonating through the base like a deep, steady drumbeat. 4, 3, 2, 1. At that moment, the railgun fired. The projectile, a dense, polished tungsten rod, shot down the barrel with speed beyond comprehension. It moved so fast that it was almost impossible to track in real time. The magnetic field around it warped, bending space slightly as it accelerated, leaving behind faint trails of energy. The base shook lightly, instruments screaming and beeping, in protest as the rod traveled toward its distant target. For a brief moment, everyone in the command room held their breath. On Earth, far away, the faint energy pulse reached sensitive instruments in orbit and on satellites. Scientists monitoring space weather noticed the unusual signature, but could not immediately understand it. Across the solar system, small telescopes recorded a streak of light moving faster than anything humans had ever observed. To them it was beautiful, almost hypnotic, but to anyone who knew what it meant, it was terrifying. The projectile continued its journey, passing near asteroids and small moons, untouched and unstoppable. Its trajectory was perfect, a testament to decades of planning and precise calculations. The scientists in the lunar base monitored every second, tracking velocity, energy dissipation, and trajectory. Even as the rod traveled millions of kilometers in mere minutes, data streamed back, filling screens with numbers too large to comprehend. Then it hit. The target asteroid, once a silent rock floating through space, was obliterated in an instant. The energy released was incredible. Instruments recorded the total destruction as the asteroid disintegrated, leaving behind a glowing cloud of molten metal and dust. Light rippled through space in an odd pattern, bending faintly around the energy pulse. For those watching remotely, it appeared as though the moonlight itself had been torn. The impact was carefully measured to avoid harm, but even at that distance, the effect was staggering. Waves of energy traveled outward, reaching satellites and instruments in orbit around Earth and the Moon. The engineers and scientists stared at the readouts in awe. They had fired a weapon of unprecedented power, and it had performed flawlessly. For a brief moment, the room erupted in cheers, laughter, and relief, but that joy was tempered by awareness. They had crossed a line. Humans had now demonstrated the ability to destroy celestial objects at will. This was not just a weapon, it was a statement. Across the galaxy, observers who had quietly monitored Earth for decades were now fully aware that humanity had taken a giant leap forward. The clear Dominion, upon analyzing the energy released by the firing, called an emergency council. Leaders, who had once dismissed humans as insignificant, were suddenly forced to reconsider. The projectile's speed, precision, and destructive potential were beyond anything the Clear had encountered in centuries. Reports from their sensors filled command halls with data showing a force that could threaten entire planets. They debated whether to prepare for war, send emissaries, or quietly observe for further signs of advancement. None of them felt confident. The Theran clans responded differently. Known for their intelligence and careful diplomacy, they immediately launched an observational fleet closer to the solar system, cloaked and undetectable. Analysts pored over every detail of the firing. They considered the possibility that humans had developed this technology independently, or that something more mysterious was accelerating their progress. The Theran understood that humanity's sudden rise could upset long-standing balances of power, yet they hesitated, unwilling to make a mistake that could provoke conflict. Even the long-dormant Nebulan Order, watching quietly from the edge of known space, took note. Their archives contained records of weapons with similar destructive capacity, once wielded by species now extinct. The pulse from Earth matched patterns from these ancient technologies. The Nebulan recognized the implications. Immediately, humans were no longer simply observers. They were now potential players on a galactic stage. Some in the Order whispered that humanity might be awakening forces that even the galaxy itself had forgotten. Back on the Moon, the engineers began analyzing the data from the firing in more detail. The projectile had traveled faster than expected, with minimal energy loss. The magnetic coils, once tested only in simulations, had performed beyond design specifications. Every system had worked in perfect harmony. The success was exhilarating, yet it brought a heavy weight of responsibility. They had unleashed a force that could, if misused, end entire worlds. As they continued studying the aftermath, subtle phenomena began to appear in the surrounding space. Tiny gravitational anomalies, minor energy fluctuations, and faint electromagnetic distortions suggested that the railgun's firing had reached farther than they had predicted. The scientists debated whether these were natural effects of the enormous energy or signs that the weapon had interacted with unknown forces in space. No one could answer for certain. On Earth, the public remained largely unaware of the scale of the test. Some satellites and observatories detected unusual readings, sparking rumors and theories about new experiments or secret technologies. Scientists who studied these anomalies noticed patterns that matched no known natural phenomenon. They speculated, debated, and recorded, but the true magnitude of the railgun remained hidden. Meanwhile, humanity's accomplishment began to echo across the galaxy. Observation fleets of various species had silently recorded the firing. Ancient civilizations, once indifferent to humans, now recognized a new factor in the balance of power. Discussions, debates, and emergency meetings filled distant command halls. Scholars and leaders analyzed the data repeatedly. The realization grew. The humans had done something unprecedented. They had created a weapon capable of changing the rules of the galaxy. The first reactions were cautious. Some civilizations feared retaliation. Others considered diplomacy. Some wondered if the humans had help from an unknown intelligence, something guiding their progress behind the scenes. Whispers of the anomaly spread quietly among galactic observers, a term used to describe the inexplicable rapid rise of humanity's technological ability. Despite the reactions elsewhere, the human team continued their work, refining calculations and preparing for future tests. Engineers strengthened the railgun structure and energy systems. Scientists modeled new scenarios simulating firings at larger scales. Everyone understood the delicate balance. The weapon's power was enormous, but so was the potential danger of misuse. The moon itself seemed to respond subtly to the enormous energy discharged during the firing. Small tremors deep below the surface, imperceptible to the naked eye, were recorded by sensitive instruments. Even the asteroid belt showed minute shifts along distant paths. Humans had altered their immediate environment in ways that could not be reversed. As the dust settled in the command room, the team looked up at the moon's surface through reinforced windows. Outside, the barren gray landscape appeared calm, as if nothing had happened. Yet beneath their feet, the railgun hummed softly, a reminder of the tremendous force now at humanity's disposal. The scientists knew they had achieved more than just a technical milestone. They had demonstrated that humans could wield power that demanded attention. In distant star systems, fleets continued to monitor. Sensors recorded subtle shifts in gravitational fields, energy emissions, and particle trails. Ancient machines, long inactive, quietly observed the changes. Analysts across civilizations debated what the humans would do next. Would they continue experiments? Would they expand their technology? Or would the quiet planet retreat, hiding its newfound power once more? No one could predict, but one fact was clear. Humanity had arrived. For the first time in history, humans were no longer an insignificant species in the eyes of the galaxy. They had shown that they could act independently, with precision and destructive capability beyond anything previously imagined. The firing of the railgun was more than a scientific achievement. It was a declaration, a signal to all who watched, that a small blue planet was capable of remarkable power, and that it could no longer be ignored. The team on the moon quietly logged every reading. Across the galaxy, the firing of the human railgun had sent waves of shock that no civilization could ignore. For centuries, empires had maintained a delicate balance of power. Ancient species had rules, traditions, and treaties that kept war contained, conflicts predictable, and dominance established. No one expected this balance to be disrupted by a species considered young, fragile, and inexperienced. Yet humanity had changed everything with a single act. In the command halls of the Claire Dominion, the air was thick with tension. Generals and advisors stood around glowing holographic maps of nearby systems, all of them silent except for the soft hum of energy monitors. Leaders who had faced countless wars now confronted a new problem: humans. The Railgun's signature left no doubt. A single projectile could travel across the solar system and destroy celestial objects with precision. The Clear had weapons of great power, but nothing fired with such speed and accuracy from a species so unpredictable. Debate raged quietly among the council. Some argued for immediate military action, fearing that if humans continued unchecked, their influence would spread to other systems. Others warned that rushing into war could be disastrous. No one truly understood what humans were capable of, and that uncertainty made the council uneasy. For the first time, the Clear had to face a species they could not fully predict. In the Theron clan's central command, reactions were different but no less serious. The Theron were known for their diplomacy, intelligence networks, and patience. They monitored humanity closely, analyzing every detail of the Railgun's firing. Observers noted the precision, the energy output, and the speed of the projectile. Unlike the Clear, the Theron considered the implications carefully. They understood that the humans' sudden technological leap could upset the balance of power across multiple systems. Urgent messages were sent to Allied fleets. Observe, do not provoke, gather intelligence, but remain hidden. Even the Nebulon order, thought extinct by most, stirred from the shadows. Their silent archivists had preserved knowledge of destructive weapons long lost to time. The railgun fired from Earth carried an energy signature nearly identical to ancient technologies that had nearly ended life in the galaxy millennia ago. The elders of the order debated quietly, speaking in low tones that carried centuries of experience and fear. "They are awakening forces we cannot control," one whispered. Another added, "We must watch closely. The humans may not even understand the danger they carry." Meanwhile, on Earth and the Moon, the human team analyzed every detail of the firing. The engineers were thrilled with their success, but they were also aware of the gravity of their achievement. The railgun had performed perfectly, but the consequences of its demonstration were unknown. Humanity had crossed a threshold, revealing that it could wield power on a scale that even ancient civilizations had taken centuries to master. Every calculation, every simulation had prepared them for success, yet nothing could prepare them for the reactions across the galaxy. News of anomalies began to filter into Earth's orbit and nearby colonies. Satellites recorded unusual energy, readings and gravitational distortions. Astronomers noticed changes in asteroid paths and electromagnetic fluctuations in deep space. While humans on Earth could not see the full picture, distant civilizations were tracking every pulse and ripple. The firing had become a signal, a declaration of humanity's presence and capability. In secret observation fleets, alien commanders exchanged tense reports. Some fleets moved closer to the solar system, cautiously cloaked to assess humanity's progress. Other civilizations debated whether to send diplomats or spies, whether to negotiate, or whether to prepare for conflict. The decision was difficult because humans were unpredictable. They had demonstrated ingenuity, resilience, and now, power that could rival entire fleets. Every calculation and assumption that civilizations had relied upon now had to be reconsidered. For humans, life in the lunar base continued quietly. Scientists examined data, ran simulations, and made adjustments to the railgun. Engineers monitored the facility, ensuring it remained stable under enormous energy loads. The team felt pride and relief, yet beneath it was a subtle awareness. The galaxy had noticed them. Humans were no longer isolated. They had entered the stage of cosmic politics, where even small actions could have far-reaching consequences. As reports from distant civilizations arrived in the galaxy, a pattern emerged. Empires that had once competed with each other now shared a common concern: humanity. The Claire Dominion debated defensive and offensive strategies. The Theron clans increased observation efforts and enhanced intelligence gathering. Even the reclusive Nebulon Order sent encrypted messages warning allies of the humans' potential. Every species recognized a single truth. The firing of the railgun had changed the balance. Back in the command center on the moon, the team could feel a subtle shift in atmosphere. The excitement of success was tempered by a growing awareness that their actions had consequences. They had demonstrated power, yes, but they had also attracted attention. Every system in the nearby galaxy was now watching. Every calculation, every firing, every energy pulse could be observed and interpreted. Humanity was no longer alone. The implications were difficult to grasp. Humans had long assumed that they were insignificant in the grand scale of the universe. The first railgun firing shattered that belief. It showed that humans could act with precision, strength, and speed that rivaled civilizations far older than Earth. It was no longer a question of survival. It was now a question of influence. The young species had forced ancient powers to reconsider their strategies. In distant fleets, military analysts ran endless simulations. They calculated potential responses, estimated damage capabilities, and debated whether to confront humans or maintain distance. Every scenario revealed uncertainty. Humans were not predictable. They were capable of adapting quickly and making decisions that older civilizations might not anticipate. Their ingenuity made them both a threat and a curiosity. The first shock of the railgun's firing also sparked fear among some leaders. The Clier Dominion, confident in centuries of military experience, felt a rare vulnerability. The Theron clans, usually patient and calculating, recognized that the balance of power could shift dramatically. Even the Nebulon Order acknowledged that the humans' rise could accelerate beyond anyone's ability to respond. The firing had not just demonstrated destructive capability, it had revealed potential. Humanity had become a variable no one could fully control. Back on Earth, political leaders quietly discussed the next steps. Public disclosure was carefully considered. Some argued for transparency, believing humanity had the right to know that it now held the power to defend itself on a cosmic scale. Others feared panic and misunderstanding. Humanity had awakened to a power that could attract enemies as much as it could inspire allies. Every decision carried weight, and no one could predict the reactions from outside the solar system. Meanwhile, scientists continued to study the railgun's effects. They observed subtle changes in nearby space, gravitational shifts, energy anomalies, and minute disturbances in asteroid paths all suggested that the weapon had effects far beyond its immediate target. The implications were staggering. Humans had not just fired a weapon, they had altered a small part of the cosmos. The quiet realization spread among the lunar team. Humanity was no longer simply a species on a small planet. It had become a force, with potential to influence events far beyond Earth. Every calculation, every simulation, every test had led to this point. And now, the reactions from the galaxy were beginning to shape the next phase of humanity's journey. Across multiple systems, civilizations continued to discuss and debate. Fleets repositioned. Observation posts focused on Earth. Diplomatic channels were flooded with messages, warnings, and requests for information. Humanity had changed the game. The firing of the railgun had proven that the young species could act decisively and with precision. That knowledge spread quickly, reshaping strategies and forcing civilizations to reconsider their assumptions. Even as these discussions unfolded, the engineers and scientists on the moon remained focused on their work. They monitored energy levels, tracked anomalies, and refined calculations. They had achieved something unprecedented, yet they understood that power brought responsibility. Every step they took now had consequences. The railgun was more than a scientific instrument. It was a symbol of humanity's arrival on a galactic stage. The firing had also sparked curiosity among humans themselves. Observatories recorded unusual phenomena in space. Satellites captured unexpected energy readings. Scientists debated whether these were natural consequences of the firing or signals from civilizations reacting to the weapon. Questions arose about the larger universe and humanity's place in it. The firing had opened doors to possibilities and dangers previously unimaginable. As months passed, the galaxy continued to react. Fleets monitored, analysts calculated, and leaders debated. Every civilization recognized that humanity was no longer insignificant. They had entered a world of cosmic stakes where actions could reverberate across light years. And at the center of it all, humans quietly advanced their technology, preparing for the next steps in their journey. For the first time, humans understood that after the firing of the Railgun, the galaxy had noticed humanity in a way that no one could ignore. Hidden fleets and distant sensors had recorded the pulse of energy traveling through space. Ancient civilizations, once indifferent to humans, were now watching closely. Some fleets moved to safer positions, observing quietly, while others debated whether to send emissaries to learn more about this unpredictable species. The firing had sparked a mixture of curiosity, fear, and cautious admiration across countless star systems. On the Moon, the engineers and scientists continued their work, studying every detail of the Railgun's firing. The initial celebration of success had faded into a serious focus on the implications. They knew their actions had not only demonstrated unprecedented power, but had also sent a signal that would not be ignored. Humanity was no longer isolated. Every pulse of energy, every calculation, every test could be observed and interpreted by other civilizations. As they monitored space, subtle anomalies began to appear. Cloaked ships previously invisible to their sensors seemed to linger near the edge of detection. These ships did not approach aggressively, but they moved in patterns that suggested deliberate observation. Scientists speculated quietly. Were these fleets sent by distant civilizations to study humanity? Or were they simply maintaining a safe distance while calculating the threat? No one could be certain. On Earth, leaders and scientists discussed the situation with a mixture of pride and caution. Humanity had proven its technological capabilities, but the reactions of the galaxy were unpredictable. Some officials argued that humans should reach out to other civilizations, attempting diplomacy before any misunderstandings arose. Others believed it was safer to remain silent and continue developing their technology in secret. The tension between curiosity and caution dominated every discussion. Meanwhile, in distant star systems, the first alien emissaries approached. They traveled slowly, remaining hidden beyond the solar system's inner planets. Their ships were sleek, advanced, and unlike anything humans had imagined. Some were large, carrying fleets of scouts, while others were small, fast, and designed for observation. Their movements were careful, deliberate, as if testing both humanity and the Railgun's capabilities from a safe distance. The human team noticed the first anomalies on their long-range instruments. Small distortions in the electromagnetic field hinted at movement far beyond the asteroid belt. Engineers and scientists analyzed the data, confirming that these were artificial signatures. The presence of other civilizations, once theoretical, was now undeniable. Humanity had become part of a much larger stage, and the rules were unfamiliar. Back in the clear Dominion, analysts tracked similar signs. Cloaked ships were detected near the solar system, and intelligence teams debated whether to intervene or observe. The sudden rise of human technology had shifted priorities across multiple civilizations. No one could be sure of the humans' intentions. Were they merely testing a weapon, or had they already begun to assert influence beyond their solar system? These questions led to cautious plans and emergency protocols across several star systems. In the Theran clans, diplomats worked quietly to gather information. Their goal was to understand human behavior before making any decisions that could provoke conflict. Observational fleets collected data on the Railgun's firing, monitoring energy patterns, projectile velocity, and structural integrity. The Theran understood that the humans' rise could destabilize the existing balance of power if misinterpreted or provoked. They debated internally whether to attempt first contact or continue observing from a distance. Meanwhile, the Nebulon, order, long thought extinct, had become aware of the subtle presence of their fleets near the solar system. They transmitted encrypted warnings across their networks, alerting allied civilizations to the humans' growing power. Their messages spoke of potential danger, as well as the possibility that humans were awakening forces even older than the galaxy itself. For them, the firing of the railgun was not just a technological achievement. It was a signal that the young species had reached a level that demanded attention. On the moon, engineers worked tirelessly to prepare for the next phase. The first railgun test had been a success, but they knew they could not stop here. Every measurement, every energy reading, every observation fed into simulations for improved performance. They strengthened energy conduits, reinforced magnetic coils, and expanded monitoring systems. They understood that the first firing had sent ripples through the galaxy, and they needed to be ready for anything that might come in response. The hidden alien fleets observed. They sent subtle probes toward the solar system, designed to gather information without being detected. Some of these probes appeared as faint streaks of light, others as anomalies in gravitational readings. Analysts on Earth noticed minor disturbances, initially dismissing them as space weather or natural phenomena. Only careful analysis revealed patterns that suggested deliberate observation. Humanity was being watched, not by one civilization but by many, each with its own methods and motives. In the command center on the moon, the team debated the implications. Could humans respond if an alien fleet attempted contact or attack? Were the railgun and other technologies sufficient for defense? Or did they need more advanced systems before being detected further? These questions weighed heavily on the minds of the scientists and engineers. Their work was no longer purely experimental. It had become a matter of survival and diplomacy on a galactic scale. Across the galaxy, discussions continued. Ancient empires that had once assumed Earth was insignificant now reassessed their strategies. The Clear Dominion, the Theran clans, and other civilizations revised protocols and contingency plans. Analysts ran simulations of potential conflicts, tracking every possible scenario involving humans. The consensus was clear. Humanity could not be ignored, and its intentions had to be carefully monitored. On Earth, political leaders debated public disclosure of the railgun's capabilities. Some argued that humanity had the right to know, while others warned that fear could spread if the true scale of power was revealed. Meanwhile, scientists continued their studies, observing subtle changes in the solar system caused by the railguns, firing, gravitational shifts, energy fluctuations, and minor disturbances in asteroid paths suggested that the weapon's impact extended farther than initially predicted. As months passed, humanity's presence in the galaxy became increasingly difficult to ignore. The railgun had not only demonstrated destructive capability, but it also acted as a beacon, drawing attention from civilizations that had previously avoided contact. The hidden fleets maintained observation, and alien emissaries approached cautiously, seeking to understand the young species' capabilities and intentions. In the lunar base, the human team continued simulations and preparations for future tests. They strengthened the railgun's infrastructure, ran energy calculations, and planned for contingencies. Each simulation incorporated potential responses from alien fleets, factoring in defensive measures and diplomacy. The team understood that every decision they made could have consequences far beyond the moon or even Earth. Humanity's rise also sparked curiosity among scientists across the galaxy. Observers analyzed data from the railgun's firing, studying energy patterns, projectile velocity, and magnetic fields. Some speculated about the possibility of hidden intelligence guiding humanity's progress. Others considered that humans had achieved unprecedented results through ingenuity and determination alone. Regardless of the explanation, the consensus was that humans had demonstrated a capacity for innovation and power that could not be dismissed. Despite the tension and uncertainty, the engineers and scientists on the moon maintained focus. Their work was precise, careful, and deliberate. They understood that the railgun had changed humanity's position in the galaxy, and they approached their tasks with both pride and caution. Each calculation, each adjustment, each simulation reflected the awareness that the future of Earth, and possibly humanity itself, now depended on their actions. The hidden fleets continued their observations. Cloaked ships drifted silently near the solar system, recording every pulse of energy and every movement. Probes analyzed magnetic fields, gravitational anomalies, and subtle shifts in spacetime. Alien analysts debated what these observations meant, weighing potential threats and opportunities. Humanity's actions had created a ripple effect, forcing civilizations to reconsider long-held assumptions about power and influence in the galaxy. As months turned into years, the subtle presence of alien fleets remained, observations became more detailed, and strategies for potential engagement were developed. Diplomats, analysts, and military leaders across multiple civilizations understood that humanity had crossed a threshold. The first railgun firing had not only demonstrated technological capability, but it also altered the dynamics of interstellar relations. Back on the moon, the team remained focused on preparing for the next steps. Simulations incorporated potential contact with alien emissaries, defensive scenarios, and advanced technologies. Engineers tested new energy conduits, reinforced magnetic systems, and refined targeting algorithms. Scientists studied space anomalies, attempting to understand the broader effects of the railgun on the soul. The galaxy had noticed humanity. For years, humans had been quietly developing their technology, unaware of the watchers in the dark reaches of space. Then came the railgun, firing across the void with perfect precision, sending energy pulses that rippled like waves through the cosmos. Ancient civilizations, long accustomed to their own dominance, felt unease stir in their councils. Humanity had declared its arrival, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. On the moon, the command center hummed with quiet tension. Engineers and scientists monitored the sensors, tracking subtle anomalies that appeared farther than expected. Energy readings fluctuated, gravitational distortions appeared in unexpected places, and faint signatures of movement were detected near the outer planets. The team understood that the railgun's firing had drawn attention far beyond the solar system. Something had stirred and it was moving closer. At first, the disturbances seemed small. Satellites recorded faint energy pulses that had no natural origin. Meteors shifted slightly in their orbits. Even the sun's magnetic field showed unusual activity, minor but measurable. The engineers speculated among themselves, considering possibilities that stretched their understanding of physics. Could these be reactions from alien civilizations? Or was it something far older, something that had been lying dormant, awakened by the railgun's enormous energy? As the hours passed, the anomalies grew. Cloaked fleets that had been observing from a distance now moved into clearer patterns, tracing the solar system in deliberate formations. The first emissaries approached with caution, remaining just beyond detection range. Human sensors recorded strange shapes moving through space, some mechanical, others biological, beyond comprehension. Every reading suggested intelligence, awareness, and caution. Humans were not merely being watched, they were being assessed. In distant command halls, ancient empires debated what to do. The clear dominion, long proud and confident, now convened emergency councils. Leaders argued over whether to engage, withdraw, or wait. Intelligence indicated that humans were developing technology far faster than expected. Every calculation of human capability had been exceeded. Fleets were repositioned, sensors extended, and contingency plans drafted. Yet uncertainty lingered, and no one could predict how humans would respond. The Theran clans took a different approach. Patience and observation defined their strategy. Analysts calculated every possible trajectory, every potential response humans could make to contact or threat. Fleets remained cloaked, monitoring from safe distances while communication channels were prepared for eventual contact. They recognized that humanity was no longer insignificant. The first railgun had proven that humans could act decisively, and with unimaginable precision. Even the reclusive Nebulon Order, guardians of knowledge from before the galaxy's recorded history, stirred. Their archives held warnings of civilizations that had risen too quickly and fallen violently. Messages were sent across allied networks. Humanity was active, capable, and growing. The railgun had been more than a weapon. It was a signal. And signals of that magnitude, the elders reminded each other, always drew attention from forces far beyond ordinary understanding. Back on the moon, the human team worked tirelessly. Each sensor reading was analyzed, each anomaly catalogued. The Railgun had opened a door, and now humanity was glimpsing what lay beyond. Subtle energy fluctuations suggested that something massive was moving toward the solar system, something with power beyond anything previously measured. The engineers recalibrated instruments, scientists reran simulations, and every system was prepared for the unknown. Then it appeared. At the edge of detection, something enormous shifted into view. It was unlike any object the humans had ever seen. Not a ship, not a natural formation, but a presence that radiated energy in patterns too vast and precise to be random. The readings suggested intelligence and intent, though the nature of it remained unclear. Instruments struggled to quantify the power. Every sensor screamed that this was a force no civilization had encountered for millennia. Panic did not strike the team, but a profound awareness did. Humanity had fired the Railgun, had demonstrated its reach and power, and in doing so, had drawn attention from a force that dwarfed everything else in the known galaxy. The engineers and scientists understood that this was no longer a question of technology alone. This was survival, strategy, and diplomacy on a scale far larger than anyone had imagined. As the presence moved closer, civilizations across the galaxy reacted. The clear Dominion sent fleets to the edges of the solar system, prepared for potential conflict. The Theran clans monitored carefully, ready to establish contact if necessary. The Nebulan Order recorded observations, warning allies of the magnitude of what humanity had awakened. All the Watchers realized a simple truth. Humanity's first Railgun had changed the cosmic order. On the moon, the human team monitored every approach. The massive entity, whatever it was, emitted pulses that interacted with the Railgun's residual energy. Magnetic fields fluctuated violently. Gravitational measurements shifted dramatically. The asteroid belt seemed to vibrate in response. Humanity had never before seen energy on this scale. Yet the Railgun had drawn it out of hiding. Earth felt its presence too, though faintly. Satellites recorded electromagnetic anomalies, and sensitive instruments noted minor disruptions in communication channels. Scientists studying space weather initially struggled to explain the disturbances. Only later would they connect the anomalies to the Railgun's firing and the approach of something massive, intelligent, and ancient. The hidden fleets that had observed humanity for months reacted quickly. Cloaked ships repositioned themselves, forming defensive formations and gathering intelligence. Emissaries that had approached cautiously now retreated slightly, wary of the unknown force moving toward the solar system. Humanity's power had been noticed, but it was only one variable in a larger, far more dangerous equation. In the command center on the moon, the engineers and scientists ran simulations rapidly. They calculated energy outputs, projectile velocities, and defensive strategies. Every plan assumed the possibility of contact or confrontation with a force beyond comprehension. Every calculation confirmed the same frightening truth. Humanity had become visible to something that did not follow ordinary rules. The Railgun had worked, but it had also drawn attention from entities that could not be ignored. For the first time, humans realized the full implications of their power. The Railgun had been a triumph, but it was also a beacon. Across the galaxy, civilizations discussed humanity as a serious, capable species. Now, at the edge of the solar system, something ancient and immense had stirred. Humans were no longer small. They were players in a cosmic arena, observed and measured by forces older than any star system. The presence continued to advance, moving with purpose. Sensors recorded energy pulses, gravitational distortions, and subtle waves of time-space. Interference. Humans could not yet communicate or predict its intentions. Was it hostile, curious, or indifferent? Every calculation pointed to power beyond imagination, yet no one could understand motive or behavior. In distant empires, alarm spread. The clear Dominion, the Theran clans, and other civilizations debated emergency measures. Some fleets prepared to retreat, others to engage. The consensus was clear. The first human railgun had shattered assumptions. Humanity was no longer a minor species. It had awakened something enormous, and the galaxy had to respond. Back on the moon, the human team observed silently. They had demonstrated power, and now the universe was reacting. The railgun had been a declaration, and the response was undeniable. Every sensor, every instrument, every reading confirmed one truth. Humanity had changed the rules of the galaxy. Ancient empires trembled, watchers recalculated strategies, and the void itself seemed to respond. For humans, the lesson was clear. Power demanded responsibility, strategy, and awareness. The railgun had achieved what no one expected. It had proven human ingenuity, resilience, and capability. But it had also drawn attention from forces beyond comprehension, forces that had been dormant for millennia. The galaxy was no longer indifferent, and humanity would need to navigate this new reality with care. As the presence approached, the team continued their work. They prepared contingencies, reinforced energy systems, and modeled every possible scenario. Each calculation reminded them that the railgun had been more than a weapon. It had been a signal that had awakened ancient awareness, forced civilizations to reconsider strategies, and reshaped the future of humanity forever. The cosmic silence that followed was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The ancient force loomed at the edge of detection, observing, measuring, and perhaps judging. Humanity had fired its first railgun, and in doing so, had made the galaxy take notice. Every throne, every empire, every hidden observer faced a new reality. A young species from a small blue planet had demonstrated power that could no longer be ignored, and humanity, standing on the moon, watched the stars with quiet determination. The future was uncertain, the universe vast and dangerous, but the railgun had shown one undeniable truth. Humans were no longer insignificant. They had entered a new era where courage, intelligence, and ingenuity would determine not just survival, but their place among the stars.